How good are Zeiss lenses compared to the likes of Voigtlander and Leica? I was keen to find out, so finally I bought the Zeiss Biogon 35mm f2.8, a lens that many Leica users rave about. You always hear the words great 3D pop or punchy colours. There's always a lot of good words when it comes to this particular lens. If you saw my last video, I'd already reviewed 27 35mm lenses for Leica M mount. So this is going to be number 28. I can put a link below if you want to see the 28 different 35mm lenses I've tested so far. Today's video is designed to tell you everything you need to know about the Zeiss Biogon 35ZM, but also the other 35mm 2.8 Biogon lenses, which you're going to find as soon as you search Zeiss 35mm Biogon on things like eBay. This won't be your top hit when it comes to searching on eBay for a 35mm Biogon. There are always cheaper options, and so I'm going to show you those and show you why you maybe don't want to get those even though they are cheaper. We'll head over to the desk and I will nerd out over the different lenses, and then I'll share some sample photos comparing the Zeiss lens to various other lenses. I think 8 lenses in total. Hey guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So yeah, can you actually tell the difference between a Zeiss lens and say a Leica lens or a Voigtlander lens? You might have seen this post on the YouTube community tab where I asked A, B, C or D which is the Leica lens. Of those that replied, 40% got it correct, and you'll see in a second which one. If you've not seen it before, pause the video, A, B, C or D, which is Leica and also which is Zeiss. So the lens testing. So here's my setup. So I was using the Leica SL to test the lenses, and I just put a Leica standard camera in front of it as our model. You can see the Zeiss lens there on the camera, but I also tested 8 different lenses to see how different 35mm lenses compare. As I say, if you want to see all 35mm lenses reviews of, I can put a link to the blog post below. So there's the test. So what I did was I had the camera set up in the middle, and I was testing both sharpness, colours, and then bokeh and flare and everything else. So here's the test again. The answer was C was the Leica lens. You can see it's much warmer, and the A was the Zeiss lens. Here's 5 lenses being compared now, and the Voigtlander Nocturne 1.2 was the clear winner. Zeiss lenses are known for their punchy colours, so I did a colour test and also a flare test. That's where those original crops came from. You can see there's no real colour benefit from using the Zeiss lens. The Leica lens version 3 is probably the warmest, and the coolest is the Zeiss lens. Zeiss are known for their 3D pop look, so let's test it. Here you can see photos side by side. Pause the video if you want to see. I tried to zoom in, but let me know which one you think has got the most 3D pop. Now, I'm sure many of you will say stop wasting your time testing side by side and just take some real photos. So as a model photographer, real world testing is often taking portraits. So first I did portraits and then I did street photography. So this is me shooting in London with the Leica M7 and the Zeiss Biogon at f2.8. And I was also trying to use it with flash. I'm playing with flash quite a lot at the moment. Here you can see the results. The results are fine. I don't think they're as sharp as some of the other results I've had from other 35mm lenses. Also, some of them have got a bit of motion blur because of shooting at a 50th of a second. That's obviously no fault of the lenses. The photos from the 35ZM lens were okay, but they didn't blow me away. Maybe they weren't as good as my very high expectations when buying this lens based on the older model, which we'll get onto. If you want to learn more about model photography, you can pick up either my free ebook or the full ebook, links below. Okay, next let's do some street photography. Just after the model shoot, actually the batteries died in the M7, so luckily we're near some shops in London, so we ran into Boots and I managed to get 4 of the little coin batteries, and that managed to get the M7 back into action. The camera takes either 2 of the bigger batteries or 4 little like watch batteries. So thankfully the batteries I could find worked, and yeah, we're back in action, ready for some street photography. Rex flew over from the US, one of my awesome patrons, so we then headed to the Canary Wharf to shoot some film. You can see the light leak at the start of the roll, and then these are all shot with foam and pan 100 with the Zeiss Biogon, probably stopping down to maybe f8 for some photos when I had enough light, and also as you can see there, shooting flash as well for some of the portrait photos. The foam and pan isn't the best. I used to love it, but I've gone off it a lot, so I think the results could have been better if I'd used better film, but I need to finish my foam and pan before I get other stuff. London's got lots of cool things to photograph if ever you visit and want to test your favourite film camera. So I was also using the 35ZM in France. I took it with us to Toulouse on the Patreon trip. I haven't yet developed this film, but follow me on the blog or wherever and you should see photos coming soon. Next, let me tell a bit more about the lens, and then stay with me, we'll get a bit more detailed and I'll show you different versions of the 35mm Biogon if you're looking to buy this lens. As you can see, you can get this lens in gloss black, and it's also available in silver. And it's actually a very pretty compact lens. It's about the same size as the Voigtlander Ultron and the version 3 Leica Summicron 35 f2. I can bring up some footage to show you. I think the lens looks particularly nice on my Leica M7, and as you can see, I've got the black nose version. Actually, I haven't. This is a bit I've cheated. So if I unscrew this, this is available from Akara Labs, I think they're called, the guys that make the pen to code your lenses. I can put a link below if you want to buy a black nose kit for your chrome nose lens. So this is the same size that fits the 35 1.4 Nocturne and 40 1.4 Nocturne, but you can get different sizes to fit the different lenses. And I think it's just like 3D printed, and I think it looks really good, in particular on this lens. If we take a closer look, you'll notice it doesn't have a focus tab, it has a focus bump, which is a Zeiss thing. So instead of having a proper tab, you've only got that little bump. Some people might like that, some people maybe not. Made in Japan, it's made in the same factory as Casino Voigtlander. As you can see, smooth focus, but some people say that Zeiss lenses get the dreaded wobble where it starts to get a bit wobbly. This one's okay at the moment. You've got third stop aperture clicks and 0.7 meter close focus, so standard for like a Leica lens. It is multi-coated, T-star coated like most Zeiss lenses. And it's got a 43mm filter, the same as the Voigtlander Nocturne Classic 35 1.4 and 40 1.4. You can see the back of the lens. And Zeiss lenses have a blue dot instead of a red dot, which always makes me smile. So that's what the lens looks like. There's the original box. I do own the Zeiss Biogon 21 2.8 and 25 2.8. I used both of those a lot in my wedding days. I don't do weddings anymore. I prefer to teach, but I did do a lot of weddings in the past for over like 10 years or so. When it comes to Zeiss Biogon lenses, you've actually got 4 different options plus a clone. I've got 3 of the 4 options because I wanted to show you different ones so you know which one to get, and I'll bring up a picture of the 4th one, and then I've got this clone, which is another option that we've got. So these are all range from a couple of lenses, but the difference is this lens is a ZM lens, the 2.8, which is obviously this review. And then there's also the ZM 35 f2. I'll bring a picture up now, which is slightly bigger. ZM means like M mount. The second option for Leica users is to get a clone lens, which is called a Jupiter 12. You can see that there. This is basically a Biogon clone. The problem is, number one, it comes in either screw mount or Contax RF mount, which we'll talk about in a second. The second issue is the rear element is huge, and so it doesn't fit all cameras. It does fit M cameras, but it won't fit cameras like my Leica CL or Leica SL, for example. I'll put a link to my 35mm lens test below, and that includes the video for the 35mm f2.8 Jupiter 12 as it's called. And then your next option is to get a Contax RF mount Zeiss Biogon. These are both Zeiss Biogon Contax RF lenses. Now it gets quite confusing when you start looking on eBay, because when you search for 35mm Biogon, you'll see these listed cheaper than the one on the Leica camera, the ZM, because the Contax RF lenses are cheaper than the ZM Leica mount ones. And then the cheapest ones, which will also sometimes list when you search for Zeiss, is the Jupiter 12. So the first time I wanted to buy a Zeiss Biogon lens, I was like, right, I'll buy the Contax RF lens. That means I can use it on my Contax RF mount cameras, which I'll show in a second, such as these. And then also I can get an adapter and use it on my Leica M film cameras, whichever film camera I want to use. So the plan was, I bought the Zeiss Biogon online. This was the cheaper version, so I was like, right, buy this. I then bought the Amadeo Contax RF to Leica M mount adapter. I've made a video on these as well, I can link it somewhere. If you get a Contax RF mount lens, whether it's a Jupiter 12 in Contax RF or the Zeiss Biogon in Contax RF, you can attach it to your adapter and then put it onto an M-mount camera. So the first question is, what's the difference between these two lenses? The one on the left is called a pre-war Zeiss Biogon 35 2.8. The one on the right is called the Zeiss Opton Biogon 35 2.8. So it's an earlier dated one. You can see it doesn't have a coated lens element. You see it's clear. This one is the post-war, and you can see it's multi-coated, and you've got the Zeiss T star coating red T there, which shows it's multi-coated. Now that's not the issue. The issue is when you remove the lens cap on the back. Look how big the rear elements are. Pre-war on the left, post-war on the right. You cannot fit the pre-war lens to almost any camera. It'll only fit the original Contax and the original Kia 4 camera. So it should fit this one. Here's a Kia 4. There, so it does actually fit on this camera. So if you've got a Kia 4, love these cameras, you can use the pre-war Zeiss Biogon. Now the problem is, I bought this originally with the plan to fit it onto my Bessa special Voigtlander Bessa camera. This is a Bessa R2C, which means it's Contax RF mount. I've done a video on this before. So I was like, right, I'll buy this, it's cheaper than the other one. I can fit it onto my Bessa, then I've got light meter, I've got 35mm frame lines, I've got all the mod cons. So I bought this, tried to fit it, and it doesn't fit because the actual element is hitting the inside of the camera. See those baffles, it hits the inside of the baffles. So don't buy the pre-war Zeiss Biogon if you're trying to use it on anything other than the earliest Contax rangefinders or the earliest Kia rangefinders. The Kia is basically a copy of the Contax, if you didn't know. So then I had to re-buy the lens, and then I bought the Zeiss Opton version. This one's got the smaller rear element, which means now you can actually fit it onto your other cameras. So it can be the later Contax cameras, the later Kiev cameras, or something like this, the Bessa R2C. Now what made me buy this lens, the ZM version, is because this, to my eyes, was one of the sharpest lenses I've ever used on any camera for 35mm film. So if you want to buy this particular setup, or if you want to use this on, say, your Leica M camera, it's like, great, I can now put it on my M camera because I've got the adapter. So you put your Amadeo adapter on, everything is good. You go to fit it to your Leica camera, and I'm not going to do it because I know it doesn't fit. The rear mount is still so big it hits your cam, and it stops you mounting this lens on any Leica M camera which has got a rangefinder. So that means anything like this where you've got a rangefinder cam. The solution is this, or cameras like this. This is called a blind Leica. It's the MD2. There's various options like MDA, MD2, MD. These cameras have got no viewfinder, so they've also got no rangefinder cam. Now you can attach this to your Leica camera, like so. Now I realise this is high level geekery, but if you're interested in this kind of stuff, it saves you buying 3 times, because I bought it multiple times before I actually got a lens that worked on the camera that I wanted it to work on. So I bought this one, failed. I bought this one for my M4P or whatever it was at the time, failed. So then I bought this one. So all you need to do in theory is buy the ZM version, everything's great. Now the problem is I bought the ZM version and it is nowhere near as good as the Opton Biogon early version, the post-war as they call it. So now what I'm going to have to do is return this lens, and I'm going to go back to using this lens on cameras like my Leica MDA, Leica MD2. I'll put a 35mm light lens lab viewfinder on the top, and then because you've got no rangefinder, you have to just scale focus it. The other option you've got obviously is get a camera like the cheap Kia 4 cameras. Love these cameras. Or something a bit more expensive but still less than a Leica, the Bessa R2C. You can buy that lens, put it on your Bessa R2C, and that's how I've got some of my best images, because then you've got rangefinder coupling, you can use a lens from f2.8, etc, etc. So in conclusion, options. The cheapest option is your Jupiter 12, available in screw mount and Contax RF mount. You then have the pre-war, the next cheapest, then the post-war. You may as well skip the pre-war unless you're going to use the Kiev camera as mentioned, and it needs to be an early Kiev camera. The widest viewfinder, if you're looking at a Kiev or Contax on the front, if the windows are on the very ends of your camera, the pre-war will fit. If the windows are further in, then it won't fit. That's the easiest way to remember it. You can then get the post-war, which fits on those mentioned cameras, but not a normal Leica RAM camera with the rangefinder cam. And then finally, you can get the ZM version, but I wasn't particularly blown away. And as you'll see from some of the test photos, if I've not already shown you, it's not outstanding enough to keep. It's just another 35mm lens where Chinese lenses can do as good or better than I could get with the Zeiss Biogon. Okay, so now you're an expert and you know the difference between the different types of 35mm Biogon lenses if you're tempted to get one on the likes of eBay or say MPB. Okay, so what is the verdict? I had extremely high hopes for this lens based on how good the Contax RF mount version is. Did the lens meet my expectations? Sadly not even in the slightest. I think what this test showed, despite being quite simple in design, is to an extent it doesn't matter what lens you use, you'll still get similar pictures to the most part. Let's say you need a 35 f2 lens. You could pick from a selection of 35 f2 lenses and they'll both do more or less the same thing. Some might be slightly warmer, some might be slightly cooler, some might have slightly different rendering in the corners and things like that. But to the untrained eye, and especially if you stop the lenses down, they're all going to give you fairly similar results. This is especially true if you're shooting on film, and like the likes of me shooting with my Leica M7 in this example. So with that in mind, the way I think of it is, if a series of lenses will all give you the same photos, you may as well first get the smallest, lightest lens, because then it's more convenient to carry, like the 35 3.5 that I did a recent review of, the new Voigtlander lens. And then secondly, you don't need to spend mega bucks and get the most expensive lens if you can get a lens for a third of the price. It gives almost identical looks, if not potentially nicer looks in certain situations. So the verdict is, I'm not going to keep the Zeiss Biogon lens. I did have high hopes. I did expect it to beat all my lenses. I even told some of my patrons, I'm like, this is the lens. I've finally bought the lens. But no, it's not good enough. Maybe I've got a bad copy. I know some of you have written to me on the blog and things and say, hey Matt, you never talk about the Zeiss Biogon, it's amazing. And then it's interesting, I kind of dug into the weeds and went through lots of the old Leica forums and forums talking about lenses. If ever you do a search, Zeiss Biogon versus, let's say, Voigtlander Ultron, everybody that's got the Zeiss lens says it's amazing, but they haven't yet tested the Voigtlander lens. The Voigtlander Ultron will do the same or better, and it's one stop faster. It's got a modern focus tab. It's slightly smaller. It takes 39mm filters instead of 43, which isn't really like a Leica size. And yeah, although the Zeiss was good in its day, I think the Ultron is the obvious answer if you need a small 35, say f2 in this example. It's called the C Biogon for C for compact. Sadly, it wasn't for me. So yeah, let me know in the comments. I know some of you love it. I think if you tried the Voigtlander Ultron, you'll probably get even better results. So yeah, just my 2 p's as usual. Thanks for watching. And as always, a huge thanks to my amazing patrons.